Yeah. So first of all, I just want to let you know that it's been almost 20 years since that trip was canceled, so you should probably rebook that.
And I just get tickled pink whenever someone responds to me when I just randomly reach out to them.
I never said that. Hear what I'm saying and don't hear what I'm not saying. Do you know what I mean? They're like, 1 plus 1 equals 3. I'm like, it surely doesn't. I spent my whole life being told 1 plus 1 does not equal 3. I don't care if we stuff up. We can learn from it. I'm not going to pay you to stuff up too many times though.
Welcome to another great episode of Dre Smiley, the Inner Circle podcast. We have a great guest on with us today.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have Lenore Johnson on our podcast. I reached out to her on Instagram and she responded and I just get tickled pink whenever someone responds to me when I just randomly reach out to them. But let me tell you about how awesome Lenore Johnson is. Lenore Johnson, owner of LenJo Bakes in Kitchener, Ontario, first realized her passion for baking while pursuing a degree in mathematics. She attended the Pastry Arts Program at George Brown College, followed by École Nationale Supérieure de Pâtisserie in Yinsick, France. I have a buddy who's fluent in France. I know I destroyed that to all our French listeners, but I am so sorry. But then while working at the restaurant in neighboring Monsieur-le-Rey, after hours, working hours, various high-profile Michelin-starred restaurants in England, she moved to Waiheke Island, New Zealand. She's all over the globe working at Goldie Estate Winery as a pastry chef. This provided the opportunity to operate LenJo Bakes as a pop-up bespoke cake studio, serving the island for nearly 2 years. A move back to Ontario to teach in Conestoga College Baking and Pastry Arts Program meant a search for a permanent home for LenJo Bakes. Today, LenJo Bakes is an award-winning bespoke cake studio and retail bakery specializing in crafting and designing buttercream cakes for all occasions. I'm getting my mouth is watered. I can't wait to get some of that. LenJo Bakes is currently transitioning their pop-up, The Shed, into a cafe space located right on King Street in the village of St. Jacobs. In addition to her own entrepreneurial passions, Lenora is encouraging other entrepreneurs as a venture coach within the Liftoff program facilitated by the Caribbean Canadian Association of Waterloo Region, as well as Conestoga College Venture Labs. Lenora continues to work towards refining her palate and further developing a global view on pastry, seasonality, and sustainability. Wow, such an impressive life. It's like, tell me, I think you're our first guest who's been from New Zealand. Just tell me, and tell me, for example, I was thinking of the Pythagorean theorem in mathematics, and then you got a cake on there. I'm like, well, what's the dimensions and what's the ratio of the A letter or my imaginary number of this cupcake? How do you go from deep level mathematics into pastry? Help us understand that amazing journey.
Yeah, so firstly, yours is not the first random Instagram message that I've responded to that's turned into something really cool.
So I'm
One
not
other
special.
time, you listen, I never said that. Hear what I'm saying and don't hear what I'm not saying. You know what I mean?
I feel
No,
you.
the first time was actually they were recruiting for a judge on a baking show on TV, and it was a message through Instagram, and I was like, man, this is random. I'm sure it's spam. I'm just gonna ignore it, whatever, whatever. And it was like only months later, my friend was like, hey, do you ever do anything with that TV show email? I'm like, nah. And so she looked up this person on LinkedIn, and this person's a legit producer. They've produced all of the seasons of Top Chef Canada. Like, you should respond.
Wow.
And I did, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. So now when I get a random Instagram message, I am wary, right? I am wary. I did ask for a website. I'm like, you need to give me some background on you before I say yes. But I almost always say yes because it usually ends up turning out good. How do you get from math to baking? Well, here's the thing. The reason I loved math so much was because I loved baking, and you can't really do the one without the other. is it a practical or an applied application of baking? Yeah, for sure. Or sorry,
Hmm.
of math? Yeah, for sure it is. But I was also interested in just like how math works. Like that is so interesting to me. I loved watching my professors like doing proofs on the chalkboard because I'm just like, they're like, 1 + 1 = 3. I'm like, it surely doesn't. I've spent my whole life being told 1 + 1 does not equal 3. And then you go and you see them solving these matrices, and like, and this equals 1, and this equals 2, and da, 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 and this is 1, and this was 1 to start. And you're like, we agree with all of these things, and all these things are true in fact. And they're like, and then therefore 1 + 1 = 3. And you're like, oh my God, it does equal 3. I, that to me is just mind-boggling. Who came up with it in the first place? Who started it? So for me, it
Yeah.
was really just returning to my roots. It wasn't something that was a huge departure for me because it felt really natural. I learned math by baking,
Mm.
and then now I'm a better baker because I've been able to explore that math aspect a little bit more as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I like how you tied that together. So when you say bakery, you're talking about like the K-pops or pop-ups. Do you do pies, cakes, wedding
Mhm.
cakes, event cakes, or all types of what's your specialty?
Yeah, so when we started, we wanted to be a wedding exclusively making wedding cakes. I wanted to be a wedding cake studio. And then on like Fridays and Saturdays, we'd like fire up the espresso machine and do like Kiwi or like New Zealand style coffee. I'm actually Canadian, but I just lived in New Zealand for 2 years. Do like Kiwi style coffee because that's where I learned how to be a barista. So that's what I know best. And yeah, just do that for 2 days out of the week. Just because where we're located, there's like a whole neighborhood around us. I didn't want to just be this business that functioned in the neighborhood but didn't serve the neighborhood at all. Like not everybody's getting married every day, and we do make other occasion cakes as well, like birthdays and anniversaries and things like that, but it can be quite an investment, and I didn't want people to just come to us like once a year, if that, for like one special cake. I wanted them to be like, man, you know what, the best chocolate chip cookie I ever got in my whole entire life was just around the corner, because then they'll come all the time for that
Yeah.
chocolate chip cookie, and probably like a bunch of other things. And I just wanted to make what I wanted to make. That was the plan. We opened Valentine's Day 2020. So although my plans were well laid, the universe was like,
Wait a minute.
psych.
Pandemic.
Yeah. And so 4 weeks after we opened, remember we were only open to the public 2 days a week. So we had 8 trading days. And then they were like, lock it down, sis. And I was like,
Wow.
nope,
Oh,
nope, I will not, because we just opened and we have bills and it cost me a bunch of money, most of which was not mine in order to get started. Locking it
Yeah.
down is not an option. What else can I do? Like, if you're serving, you have to serve through a takeout window. And I'm like, well, my goodness, we have a window. It's in the back. It's not easily accessible and it's not great. We're going to turn it into something. And we served out of that takeout window for 9 months. And that way we
Wow.
were able to
wow.
keep going. So we did not have to stop operating. But it did mean that like my friends and family had been coming in and like helping to serve and things like that. That stopped. So it was just me. I was one going, standing in line at grocery stores to get the things that I need, watching people roll out with TVs when all I was trying to do is get some flour and some yeast. And I would serve and bake. And so we had to expand our retail offerings, obviously, because now we're having no event cakes at all. So now, we make cinnamon rolls and chocolate babkas and French macarons and brownies and squares and little verins, which are desserts in a jar, and individual mini cakes and cookies. I'm sure I'm missing things. Mini hand pies. So everything we do is pretty much individually sized.
Mm.
So like little mini hand pies and like homemade Pop Tarts, and we're making absolutely everything from start to finish. So in our Pop Tarts, like we make the dough, we make the jam that goes inside, we make the icing, and we put it all together and serve it. So
Wow.
we're pretty much a retail bakery, and now we're starting to get back into weddings as they become allowed, and birthday cakes, and we do grab and go cakes now. And now we have a cafe out in St. Jacobs, so we do like light savory options there, like lunches and things like that. So it seems
Wow.
like we do it all.
Yeah. What's interesting, Lenore, is as you're sharing all the things you guys are doing in terms of what you're making and things like that. Like Smiley said, my mouth is watering. Do you guys do any delivery services? Can I place an order for delivery? I mean,
You can
like
place an order
shipping?
online. We don't. You know what? I get this question a lot. We don't ship, mostly because product is best
It's
like the day that
tough.
it's made.
Yeah.
And And two, like Canada Post, it's like their goal is to play football with every parcel that comes
Oh,
into their hands. So
yeah,
they're just,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a whole,
Your
they're like,
upside
we
down
want to
cake will
see,
literally be an upside
yeah,
down cake. Yeah,
very, very this. And
yeah,
I don't trust them. I don't trust
sure.
anybody.
Yeah, yeah,
Unless they are my employee.
yeah.
Um, to handle our goods in a
And
way
then the
that
freshness
makes sense.
aspect of it too. That's huge.
That's the
Yeah,
most important thing to me.
yeah,
I don't want you to have my chocolate chip cookies 5 days later. That's not the move.
yeah,
It's not going to
yeah,
be as delicious as like, wow, the chocolate chips are still melty because they came out of the oven maybe 7 minutes ago. Like that's
yeah, yeah. That's ideal. Yeah. So I know based on your bio that you've worked in a number of Michelin star restaurants. Tell me how you got into that, and maybe for those that aren't aware, um, working at a Michelin star restaurant is significant. Why is it so significant? What is a Michelin star restaurant? And then talk about the journey of working at one.
yeah, for sure. So I'll start by explaining, yeah, what the whole entire system is. So Michelin is a brand of tires, and they created a guide. And essentially, this guide was because back in the old days, you didn't have Google Maps or MapQuest or anything like that. And so they were creating and ranking places to eat and places to stay along your journey. So you would get a map and you would look on this little map and it would have, 1 star and 2 star and 3 star. Only goes up to 3 stars. And a 1 star is like, if you happen to be in the area, go check this place out. The lodgings are lovely, the food is beautiful, blah blah blah. 2 star is like, yeah, you know what? If you're anywhere within the vicinity of this locale, you should probably go. You should probably go to this place. It's incredible. The standards are very high. It's exceptional. And then there's a 3 star. It's like you thought you knew what your destination was, but you're wrong. This is actually your destination. This is the place that you should be heading to. And if along the way you see some other things, amazing. But this is your destination. So that's kind of how a really simplified version of the stars, what they stand for, and kind of where it all started. And this, gosh, I don't remember how old the Michelin Guide is, but hundreds of years. It's been around for ages. And so I always, not always, when I decided in my last year of university that I did not want to work in the corporate world because I hated it. Just me personally. There wasn't an aspect of it that I liked. I was like, I'm dressing up, go to work, to press buttons on a computer that does what for whom. It didn't make any sense to me. I was like, I get no value out of it. I'm not happy. I just want to do something that makes me happy. And so I decided that I was going to go to pastry school and pursue this dream that I had. And once I graduated, I knew that I wanted to work abroad. I'd learned about the Michelin system. We did not have it in Canada. It actually only just got here last September, and only in Vancouver and Toronto. It's not even nationwide. And so I was like, I guess I got to go to Europe. The Michelin system is in Europe. I guess I got to go there. My grandparents actually live just outside of London. So like, this is also a great opportunity for me for the first time in my life to live within close proximity to my grandparents. Like an hour on the train is nothing compared to like an 8-hour flight. So I'm like, cool, we'll go and we'll do that. So I moved to England and I was working in just a hotel, and they said that they were a 5-star hotel. They lied. And I was like, these standards, no, I can't be in here doing this. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, we need more sugar. And they're like, oh, you can't have any more sugar because it's the end of the month and we have to like meet our quotas for money or whatever. And I'm like, you're
What?
asking me to make cupcakes without sugar? Like, we'll run to the store and get you sugar for your cupcakes. I'm like, what kind of backwater? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Where am
Doesn't matter.
I?
So, bury this. Bury this. And it's funny because the clientele were paying so much money. Oof, for nothing. Anyway, neither here nor there. I don't work there anymore. And so I was like looking around and I'm like, I need a new job and I want to work in a Michelin-star restaurant. And it so happened that literally the next town over, just 20 minutes away, they were hiring a chef de partie, which is, or a demi chef de partie, which is like just above the level of like kitchen slave, essentially, right? You have a commie, that's the person that does like the least. They do all the grunt work. They're taking out the garbage bins, they're like washing everything, they're peeling all the fruit, whatever. And one step up from that, they were hiring a demi chef de partie. You know, a lot of responsibility and no credit. Okay, that's
Okay.
what it is.
Okay. Okay.
And they were specifically looking for somebody in pastry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to apply. This is going to be like the greatest thing ever. And so I applied. And I went in for an interview, and they're like, cool, interview is on like Thursday, like 7 a.m. Got to be here 7 a.m. That's when we start. I'm like, yeah, sure, sounds fine. I arrive at 7 a.m. They're giving me all these tasks, and I'm doing them. They're like scale everything first, and we'll come and double check it. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I think I started with bread, and so yeast and milk. I put that together, temp the milk, scaled all my flours together because I knew it was all going to go together, and blah blah blah. Everything's organized. I'm like, okay, I've scaled. And they're like, oh, you scaled it all correctly and together with the things that needed to be matched. I'm like,
You're
yeah.
like, yeah, that's what you
Is
asked me
that
to do,
not
right?
is that not what I'm supposed to do? I'm confused. Like, oh, we've just never had anyone who's actually only known how to make pastry apply for a pastry job. Usually pastry, especially in a Michelin star restaurant, most fine dining actually, is like how you get your foot in the door. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to be competent enough before you can accelerate out of pastry and into real cooking. That's how it's seen. But pastry is all I do. I'm like break down a fish. I don't know how to do that. I can peel a
Yeah.
carrot, right? Because I do that at home. But like you want me to fillet a fish? I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't cook. You want me to like make a consomme? I can't help you. But I will separate the eggs for you so that you can use the whites as a raft. That's all I can do. My contribution in the kitchen in the savory world is very limited. But pastry is something I did well. And so after a 16-hour interview, I was
Wow.
offered the job. Yeah,
Wow.
I was offered the job, and that was their normal work day. So,
Wow.
well, from Tuesdays we started late. Tuesdays we started at 8:30, which was nice because we only had a half
Mhm.
day. We didn't do lunches. We only did dinners on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday started at 7. And worked until at least 11:30 every night, except on the weekends. Friday, we were probably till 1:30, and Saturdays until 2:30 because you had to clean everything down. And it's a standard that you can't equate unless you know it. So, from the customer to the folks who are working in the back, every little thing, you don't have to wonder about anything. You can think, oh, I'm about to do this, and it will appear. That's the
Wow.
level of service. You don't have to think about anything. Everything is perfect. Like the carpet is the cushiest carpet you've ever stepped on in your entire life. The seats are the most comfortable that you've ever. The lighting is perfect. The menus are great. And then the food is exceptional in terms of flavor, in terms of presentation, in terms of how it's made. And I learned an incredible amount, both in like, determination, because every day you show up and you have to be perfect, and you can't be less perfect than you were the day before. You have to be perfect. And that takes a lot in order to do the same thing over and over again and still be perfect every
Mm.
time. Complacency, you don't know her. You've never met her. You could see her and be like, oh, you're a stranger to me. It can't
Yeah.
happen. And they demand that of you. And, you know, people, they try to say, our kitchen's really as bad as like Gordon Ramsay and whatever. I'm like, Gordon is nice compared to some of
Wow.
these other situations that you're in. And especially being a woman, I was one of
Mhm.
two. The other
Mm.
woman worked in pastry with me. Her name is
Mhm.
Jen, but she knows how to cook. That's the difference. Jen can do anything. And I'm like,
Okay.
I know how to make sweet things. So if you need me to do
Yeah.
anything else, you're going to have to teach me, and teach me like I'm dumb. Because I'm like,
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And then to be a person of color as well, it was nobody looked like me. Nobody looked like me. So it was challenging. And after I moved on from that Michelin star restaurant, it was a whole sequence of events. But I ended up coming home for a little bit. My dad um, was incredibly ill, and I
Mhm.
didn't go back to the UK for a few months. And when I came back, I applied at a luxury hotel, 5-star luxury hotel in the center of London in Soho. And I showed up for my first day. I'd already been hired. I showed up for my first day. And I was like, hey, I'm here to see the pastry chef. And they're like, okay, we'll call down. They called down. And I waited, And I'm like, hey, somebody's supposed to be coming to get me because
Mm.
my job is going to begin. And now I'm late, even though I'm here.
Right. Right.
So I don't know where to go. So someone's got to help me. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. We'll call someone. And they call this gentleman up, and he comes up, and I'm like, pastry chef is a woman. And he's like, oh, you're not here as a kitchen porter? And a kitchen porter is the person that washes dishes. And the person at security assumed that because I was Black, I was there to wash dishes because that's all the other Black people. That's what they did. They worked in sanitation, all of them, even everybody. I'm like, no, I'm here because I'm a pastry chef.
Yeah.
I work. I'm here to make things. I'm not here to. And no shade to those other folks who were
Right.
doctors and dentists and
Right.
whatnot in their own countries, and they were here striving to make something work to take care of their family back home.
Hmm.
But it was just the assumption. So like that's what it was. That's what it was like at the top.
Hmm.
But in terms of quality of product and just innovation and what we did on a regular and consistent basis, it inspires what I do now, and it's why I hold
Mm.
myself to such a high standard. Because why not? You don't have to go to a Michelin-star restaurant to get Michelin quality food. You just have to have someone who's committed to excellence and
Hmm.
excellence every time, and that's what I'm committed to. And every day I strive to be perfect and just as perfect as the day before. And it's not common. You don't see it a lot. So yeah, basically that's a rundown of that.
That's great. That's great. So a couple things stood out to me when you shared that story, the journey to working in a Michelin-star restaurant. And by the way, was it a 1, 2, or 3-star restaurant, the one that you worked
It
in?
was just a 1 star and it was hard. I don't know
Wow.
how those folks were out there doing 2 and 3 stars. I'm like, I'm working 80, 85, 90 hours a week, and y'all are out there working 100, 110 hours a week, and it could not
Wow.
be me. Could not be me.
But one of my questions that you already answered was going to be, what made you want to strive for that goal of working in a Michelin-star restaurant? It's clear. It's like a surgeon or any physician that wants the
Mhm,
best residency
mhm.
or fellowship program there is that's out there. That's where you
Yeah,
go and you realize that, hey, I'm going to be challenged like I've never been challenged before. I'm going to develop
yeah,
skills that I'm going to realize a new capacity I didn't realize I had. That's clearly what you
yeah,
got from that experience. Also, something that stood out to me is the interview process. So, being from corporate America, my thought was, well, you go in, talk to a couple people, and they see if they like you. You show your resume. I was talking to someone yesterday about how, the whole interview process today, I think it's flawed because the whole
mhm,
idea is that for corporate jobs, you go in there, you show your best self for an hour, 2 hours, maybe three, and
yeah.
you have the best resume. So, anyone can, you know, make their best self show up for that short period of time. I
Absolutely.
love the idea of, and I don't know how this would transition into the corporate world, but okay, so you're here for the pastry job. Let's see you work, make it
Yep.
happen. There's no, you can't fake that,
Yep.
either you
Yeah.
can or you can't, and like you said,
Yeah.
the guy came and I was like, whoa, you actually measured everything out, and you're scratching your head like, wait, was I not supposed to measure everything out? So
Exactly.
that's something else that stood out. So the skills you developed from there clearly are being used in your own
Mhm.
business. The question I have for you though is for those that you bring into the shop to work with you, right? How challenging is it seeing that because no one's going to have that level of experience that you have and
Yeah.
come work for you? Because these are people that are at a different level, which is fine.
Yeah.
How
Absolutely.
challenging is it to kind of get them to kind of believe in, the level of diligence, quality, et cetera, that you have? How hard is it to get them to buy into it? Or how do you do it?
Ooh. Yeah. You know what? It's probably the greatest challenge that we experience. Um, but I think like right now, my team, oh my gosh, I would die for them. I would die for each and every one of them. Each of them, I think, 3 bakers, they've all been with us for more than a year, actually more than a year and a half. And the person that's been with us the longest, Hannah, she's almost at 3 years. She decided that she wanted to go back to school and become a teacher. And I love that for her. I think she's going to excel in the role. I'm really excited. But now I'm thinking I'm going to have to replace her. And I'm dreading it. I am dreading it because it is hard to convince someone that like good enough is actually not good enough. It's like, oh, it's good enough. I'm sorry. If you wake up out of your bed to be mediocre, that is fine for you, but you can't do that here. You can't do that here. My expectation is not mediocrity. My expectation is actually excellence every time, all the time, because it's what I expect of myself. And I think the best thing is that for everyone that I hire, they see me work and they see me do excellent all the time. And they see me redo things which are not perfect or which are not at a high standard of excellence. And I think that by demonstrating, I'm not just talking about excellence. I'm displaying excellence every time. And like, oh, I made a pot of jam and in the last 5 minutes of it, it caught a little bit and it doesn't taste as fresh as it's supposed to be. I guess I'm going to have to get more berries out. And I guess I'm going to have to undertake the entire 2 hour operation again because that's not good enough. We'll find something to do with that, right? We're not going to waste. We'll figure it out. But for the preparation that we wanted, where it's supposed to taste like you're biting into the fruit at its prime, that can't be it because it's no longer good enough. But if we're putting it with like chocolate, it's going to be in a brownie, and it's okay if it's like a little deeper tasting. That's fine. But for a hand pie, the preparation that we were using it for, we can no longer use that. It's unacceptable because it's not good enough. And I think them seeing me hold myself to the same standard that I'm asking them to hold themselves to, is they either come up and they meet the standard, match the standard, and maintain the standard, or they don't, and we let them. It's a mutually agreed situation that they should probably move on elsewhere. I'm not knocking them and their skills. I'm sure there'll be a place that is great for them, but it's not here with us. So it can be challenging to convince people that like this is where we operate. When people come into LenJo Bakes, they expect this, and we give them this or more. We never meet them with this. If they're expecting this and they come in and they get this, it's a problem. And you know, it's often that in the beginning, especially when we hire someone, that they'll do something and I'm like, nah, do it like this. Here, let me show you exactly how I want it done. And I'll spend the time and I'll stand there with you. And all of my folks, they're like, I'm like, oh, you know, like I'm not that controlling. And they'll crack up. Because I'm like, Lenore, what are you talking about? You're like, control freak is you. Look it up in the dictionary. I'm like, it's not control freak. It's setting the standard
Right.
and then letting you go for it. But I don't want you to stray early in the beginning. I don't want to give you too much freedom. So you're like, oh, well, I did it this one time and it was fine. No, no, no. I'm sorry. But you can't do that. It has to be exact and it has to be perfect. And we do that every time. And anything less than, they'll know. I'll like walk through the fridge or I'll be looking at containers or I'll see somebody bring something out and be like, hold the phone. Who made this? What is this? And it's like, oh, you know, it's the blah, blah, blah. And no, you can bring that plate back. That's okay. We'll take it and make something else out of it. But out there, it's not going to go. I
Right.
don't care if we stuff up.
Yeah.
We can learn from it. I'm not going to pay you to stuff up too many times though. Right.
Mhm.
And you know that. And I know that. As long as we're in agreement that like we're not gonna be, but customers don't need to see everything. Everything that we make, just because we made it doesn't mean that it goes out. It has to be good enough.
Yeah.
That's it. And there are people who are happy to be challenged and happy to not be mediocre. And the pay is not only in money, but it's in the fact that we're like super heckin' busy. And people
Mhm.
come to us because they know they're never going to leave disappointed. Everything is going to be balanced and it's not going to be super sweet and it's going to be really fresh. And they're going to know that, like, you know, we went and we picked peaches for 3 hours just so that we could bring you this peach galette, which tastes like you're biting into a peach. They're like, it doesn't get better than this. You're like, you're right, it doesn't, and you're welcome.
King Kong
Like,
has nothing on my pies.
exactly. I don't
Yeah.
know. It doesn't take that much convincing when the feedback is as great as it is, and when
Mhm.
customers are as appreciative, and when you get comments like, "Oh my gosh, this tastes exactly like my grandma used to make," and
Mhm.
you know she's passed away 10 years now, and I feel like I'm a child again sitting in her kitchen.
Mm.
That kind of stuff, you can't buy that. You can't recreate that. And it's like, yeah, you did that. Feel how good that makes you feel
Mm.
that you were able to do that for someone. And think about how it would impact your life if that could happen for you. And just know that that's the impact that you're having. At the end of the day, it is just food, right? You're going to consume it. You're going to pass it out a couple of days later.
Mhm.
That is not life changing. The
Mhm.
experience of it, however, can be, and
Sure.
that's what we focus on. That's what we
Sure.
focus on.
So two things come to mind as you share all of that. One is there's absolutely nothing wrong with setting a high standard. Some people, see that and think, oh, Tiger Mom, that's not the case.
No.
Everyone has the ability to set their own standard of quality, right?
Yeah.
So if your quality is here, if it's a
Mm.
high quality, That's fine. People that come into that environment, as long as you express that, hey, here's what I expect, there shouldn't be any problem of, why is she being so whatever.
Uh-huh.
Second thing that comes to mind is in corporate America, I would use for the team that I worked with is, coach people up or coach them out,
Mm,
right? So my
mm,
job as a leader is to take those on my team and give them the tools and they need to succeed in that position, but also
yeah.
prepare them for the next level.
Yeah.
If me and that individual discover that, okay, this is not the best fit, this opportunity is not the best fit, then it's my job then to coach them out into the next opportunity, right?
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and if it's done correctly, hopefully you can avoid having it be, we would say, without a cake, which means that it was abrupt. It wasn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
an overnight decision, so, but yeah, so you setting the goal for your business in terms of high standards. I love it, and
Mm.
it just makes sense. Smiley, I know you want.
Yeah, two things is one, and I want to ask you about New Zealand, but while we're talking about labor, we had someone on the show before, and he was in the commercial city department, and he said it was easier to get someone who had no CDL, no truck driving experience, and train
Mm.
them the
Mm.
proper way than to have someone who had a CDL and they got to change their bad habits. So
Yeah.
just thinking like, would you be better to say someone who had the passion and desire, who just wants to learn, who knows nothing, but then you could train them the right way, or someone who's like, oh, I worked at Capital Grill and I worked here at Red Lobster, and let me come in there, and they're just like, man, I got to retrain, or what's
Uh,
the best one? Did you get the best employee from?
yeah. For us, our requirement is that you would have had to go to culinary school.
Okay.
Must, had to. I don't want to say, hey, can you make me a batch of chantilly real quick? And you'd be like, sorry, can you tell me what chantilly is? No, I'm not going to tell you what chantilly
That
is.
would be me.
That would be
Yeah,
me. I'm like,
100%. And
I don't think I ever heard what is a chantilly. Did I
oh,
say it right? It sounds like
Smiley,
a chandelier.
you know what that is? It's that stuff they make back in the kitchen. You know what it is? That tasty stuff they make.
I
Chantilly.
know the
get
next time
out.
I go to a Michelin rated restaurant, I'm going to order a chantilly because I've never had
No,
a chantilly.
don't do it. You're going to embarrass yourself.
Let me
Don't
let me
order
get
a
let me get
Okay.
two.
chantilly.
I heard they're good. Let me get two of them.
Can I get two chantillies
Well,
now?
with some ice cream. Let me get some ice cream on the
or
side.
I'm literally dying. Okay, so for
What
the
is
listeners at
chantilly? What is
home,
chantilly?
I this is exactly what I'm getting to. Chantilly is literally like sweetened whipped cream with vanilla in it. That's
Oh,
that's all it is. So you can have it with ice cream, but it's usually on top. Or
okay.
it's used to like fill something. I was like, y'all are killing me, dying. Chantilly is a place in France. It's the first place they made the cream, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're not just using straight cream that you're just whipping. You're actually sweetening it and adding flavor. Wow, revolutionary!" Now
Okay.
Chantilly.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
you guys are like, give me two of them. I'm like, don't do it. You're gonna embarrass yourself.
Well, no, that's cool. I understand that.
Um,
So they have to have culinary training. That's good.
they do, yeah. Just the basics. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy if somebody is coming from somewhere else as well. I don't think anybody that we've hired that's lasted had any prior experience. We did take someone who had just done like one course because they were passionate about it. And they're like, yeah, I think I really want to hack this as a job. No, didn't work. And someone who came in with like boasting 20 years of experience. Okay. And yeah, so the best person for us has like a good basis. We hired someone who, yeah, was boasting like 20 years of experience. And then I asked them to make a chocolate mousse. And I came and I looked at it and I was like, what happened? And they're like, yeah, well, you like whip your cream till stiff. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't whip your cream till stiff. You whip your cream till just past medium because that's where it has the highest amount of volume. Who told you that you whip your cream till stiff? It's like, this is how I've always done it. I'm like, and this has always been the result. And you thought it was fine. I don't understand what you're saying. If you're gonna lie to me, like lie to me well. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can't look me in my face and tell me that this is how you've been making chocolate mousse for 20 years and nobody said boo to you. That's crazy to me. It looks like a pile of doo doo. It does. You can't tell me otherwise. So we mutually agreed. They were like, yeah, it's a lot of pressure. And I'm just feeling really overwhelmed. I'm like, no, absolutely, 100%. You can absolutely just leave us. Okay, we're not
Mhm.
mad. So you need a little bit of knowledge so that I'm not explaining to you the basics because the basics
Mm.
there's a lot, how to cream, your butter and your sugar together well. I can't explain that to you. I just need you to know how to do it,
Hmm.
because it's the basis of every cookie recipe ever, and even the basis of some cake recipes. And if you don't know those basics, I can't take the time to train you, because I need to train you on how we do things here. And there are 90 steps for that. And I need you
Mhm.
to know these first five. You have to come with that base knowledge. So for us, it is easier to have someone who's like new, but not like new. They might have like some bad habits, but they're not committed.
Mm. Mhm.
That's kind of our sweet spot for sure.
No, thank you. So tell me, you explained how you went from Canada to London, Europe. How did you transition to New Zealand? I'm fascinated with New Zealand because one, that's one of the places I haven't been, and
Oh, you gotta
two, you're
go.
the first I know, and I was on my way there, and then my trip got canceled, but
Oh,
that was like in 2005, and I
boy,
was
oh
all excited to
boy.
go. I know I was excited to go, but how was baking in New Zealand? Are their palates the same, or was that
No.
did you consider like, let me go to Senegal, let me go to South Africa, or let me go to Brazil, but you ended up
Yeah.
in New Zealand? How did that happen?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to let you know that it's been almost 20 years since that trip was canceled, so you should probably rebook that.
So what are you saying, Lenore? You can't, he shouldn't bring it up? Is that what you're saying, Lenore? He shouldn't bring it up
You know
anymore?
what? Back then, I had no family, no kids. I got a 16-year-old now, so
You think they
that's on
don't
my
want to go to New
list.
Zealand?
True. That's true. When I
You
meet
got
you, I'll tell you about my trip to New Zealand.
Yeah, you got to take them now. You're 16, that's 2 more years, and then they're an adult and they're off to college, and you're never going to have your paws on them again. You got to
Yeah,
you got to go
that's
now.
true. I gotta go.
That's so funny. Yeah, so actually when I was working in London, a friend that I met at culinary school, she was doing savory and I was doing pastry, and we would make a lot of product and we would just do swaps all the time. We'd make bread and she'd make soup. She'd get half my bread, I'd get half her soup. We'd eat. It was basically what it ended up being, because we were both poor students as you are. And I told her when I was in London, I'm like, Megs, come and do the same thing I did, which is a youth mobility visa, which says it's for youth, but it starts at 18. And for some countries, I think goes all the way up to like 35, especially in Scandinavian countries and things like that. And it takes away a lot of the visa requirements, because moving from place to place is actually very difficult. It's really hard, and it truly is a privilege to be able to go to another country. But a bunch of countries have these mutually beneficial agreements where their youth can come to our country and our youth can go to theirs. And basically, it's just a matter of filling out the form, paying the money, and you're usually approved unless you're a criminal, um, or unhealthy, which is unfortunate, but whatever. They don't want you to be a burden. And so I was like, Megs, and she was working somewhere and she really liked it. And she's like, I think I might want to travel. Like, you should definitely quit your job. You should definitely travel. You should definitely come to London. And she's like, yeah, I thought about it and I was applying and I was going to apply for London, or for the UK. And she's like, and then I saw New Zealand and I thought, I'm going to apply there and see what happens. I'm like, well, you're obviously going to get approved as a working holiday visa. That's how it works. And she did, of course, get approved. And she did, of course, move to New Zealand. And I was like, we kept talking about we have to work together. We have to work together. And I knew that I was going to open my own place, and I knew that it was only going to be sweet, so that she wasn't going to have a chance to work with me. I'm like, now's the time. We need to figure out a time how to work together. So my visa in the UK was ending, and she had been in New Zealand for 1 year, and I'm like, okay, we have to make a decision, because it's in the next year or the next 2 years, we need to be in a place where we can work together before I start my own thing. It has to be now. She was like, yeah, I'm actually working on this island just off the coast of Auckland, about an hour by ferry. And I'm working at a winery, and we turn down people for wedding cakes all the time. I'm like, okay, so the next place, after having the restaurant and hotel exposure, I was like, I knew when I went into pastry school, all I wanted to do was make cakes. And it's been reinforced that all I want to do is make cakes. Restaurants, it was cool. And I did it and I excelled. Grateful for the experience. Hotels, same thing. It was cool and I did it and I excelled. Grateful for the experience. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to make cakes. And I was like, no matter where I go in the world, I want to make cakes. And I wasn't quite ready to come home. I wasn't quite ready to come home. I'm like, I felt like I didn't get the real experience that I wanted to. And so she was like, I'll ask my boss if she wants to hire a pastry chef. I'm like, well, it's only the two of y'all and like a helper in the kitchen right now. She's not going to want to bring somebody on exclusively for pastry. I'm like, anyway, I'm going to go to bed. You're going to work. I'll talk to you next time we talk. And literally, I woke up in the morning and checked my phone. Like, my boss looked at your portfolio. I showed her all the photos of your work, and she wants to hire you. So just apply for your visa and get over here before October. And that was it. And that's how I got to New Zealand. And so my first 6 months at Goldie, I was hired by Leslie, who's lovely, one of the best humans. And I made all of the wedding cakes, and I was the executive pastry chef. So I made all of the other desserts as well. And I also helped in the culinary side of it, which was great because I'd never done it before. So I was learning all sorts. And where we were, Waiheke is really close to Auckland, but still considered rural because you can only get there by ferry, or by plane. and that's it. So it was really interesting to know that, like, oh, we didn't get the bread delivered that we were supposed to. We ain't got bread. That's it. Oh, we didn't get, these fruits that we were supposed to get. We ain't got it. That's it. And it's like, okay. So, we were growing a lot and picking a lot. And, there was a bay tree outside that's where you got your bay leaves from, which, like, I was like, bay leaves come from a whole tree? I thought there was just like a little plant or a bush or something. And no, you can like cut down like a limb. We would cut down like a limb of a tree and just bring it into the kitchen to dry so that we would have bay leaves. And all of our citrus came from the winery, and all of our olives would get picked and pressed into olive oil, and that's what we served in our picnic baskets. And basically, couples would come and be like, yeah, you can make our wedding cake. And I would take over and I would do the consultation. I'd find out what they want. I would make sure I have everything ordered and decide on designs, everything like that. And after one season, she was like, listen, first of all, we're not paying you enough to be turning out the works of art that you're turning out. Second of all, we're not charging the customer enough because we don't even want to bother doing the charging. And thirdly, you can do this on your own. We've given you nothing except a space in which to work, and you've done everything else. You're basically running your own company. You should go and do this on your own. And that is all I needed to start a pop-up. I went and I found a shipping container kitchen, which was a kitchen in a shipping container. And the gentleman was happy to rent it to me for $40 per day that I needed to use it. And I would pay him the $40, and I advertised. I posted one time in Facebook and had an Instagram page set up. And it started out pretty slow, and then orders just kept rolling in. And before I knew it, it was basically my full-time job.
And you were by
I was
yourself?
just making cakes. Just me.
Wow.
Yeah, just me. But there weren't that many other people on the island. There was like 2 others, and then one of them went skiing in Europe and like broke her back, and all of the weddings that she booked needed to be rebooked, and they all rebooked with me. It was wild. It was wild. Yeah. So yeah, I was doing it on the side. I was serving in a restaurant for my full-time job, and that paid my rent. And this just ended up being the money that I used to travel around the country. But it was incredible. It taught me so much. No one gets that real life experience. Like, I literally started and ran a business in another country with an input of like $1,000 for a mixer. And that was it. Everything else was being paid for by these folks. I didn't have to meet them I'm an introvert. So meeting people in person and like having discussions is overwhelming. I hate it. It's a part of my job, and I do it well, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
And they would email me. I would ask them a few questions, and even that whole process of how to communicate with a customer. What are the questions I really need to ask them? Because like email chains that are 20 emails long are too long. We need 3. You reach out to me. I reach out back to you. You say, okay, you send me my money. I deliver your cake. Problem solved. All sorted. And that's how majority of interactions went. In terms of palate and like what the expectations are in New Zealand compared to where I am here in Canada, people in New Zealand are just so chill. They're just so chill. Hey, we're looking for a wedding cake. We want it to taste like this. We love these flavors that you offer. We want it to look like this. I'm like, okay, it'll be this much money. They're like, sounds great. And they send me the money. And then I deliver the cake. They're like, everything was perfect. Whereas here, they're like, what flavors do you have? It's like, oh, it's on our website. We put it all up there. Yeah, but what flavors are there? I'm like, you want me to read them to you? Like, in North America, this like desire of customer service being like me holding your hand and leading you to the information which is readily available because you apparently cannot source it for yourself is overwhelming to me. It actually drives me insane. Like, I should have just stayed in New Zealand and I would have been totally fine, not having to be like, yeah, so the flavors that we offer, it's like, yeah, but what's your favorite? I'm like, I don't have a favorite flavor because it's not my cake. It's like, well, what do you do all the time? It's like literally every cake is different. Every person is different. Everything is unique. It's like choosing a baby and being like, I don't know, do you want your baby to come out with like ears that look like this or like this or like this or like this or like this? There are 97 million permutations. What do you want? What's your favorite ear shape for your baby? I don't know. Don't ask me that. You can't ask me that. I have no idea. It's the same for a cake. babies and
Okay.
cakes are exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So tell me this, because solely because of time, because both Smiley and
Mm,
I have a million more questions for you, but we're gonna kick it into the final four in just a second. Before I do, though,
yeah.
two quick questions. One, and these are gonna be quick. Um, in a sentence or two, how would you describe how you balance the demands of what you do professionally in your
Hmm.
personal life? Because it sounds like what you're doing professionally takes up the majority of your time. So how do you create that
Yeah.
balance?
Yeah, I don't. That's really
Okay.
simple
I don't.
answer.
I don't. No
Okay.
work-life balance. Just all work. All work
I
life.
know what about.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't. Yeah, I got married in 11 days and we opened our new
Congratulations.
cafe. Thank you.
Congratulations. What
Yeah.
kind of cake? What kind of
Thank
cake?
you.
Are you making
I
the
don't know
cake?
yet. I am. I am. I don't know yet. I've only just kind of decided on what I think I want it to look like. Flavor wise, I mean, I love passion fruit. There'll be passion fruit in the cake. I love funfetti. One of the tiers will be funfetti. There'll probably be strawberries because they're like just coming into season. And we'll maybe do chocolate as well, just to say that we did.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I've not decided. But we're doing a dessert bar because I can't make choices. Like trying
Yeah.
to choose a favorite. So we're
Right.
gonna have lots of everything.
So that balance is
Yeah.
tough. It sounds like the work life balance is tough.
Yeah, the thing is that like if I had just been running my shop, which is,
Hmm.
now 3 years in, we're kind of running like a well-oiled machine. There's not really much that gets in the way, then it'd be one thing. But our cafe was delayed probably like 6, 7 months. So what should have opened last year only opened last week. And so all of that work that goes in with setting up a storefront and establishing processes and trying to get info out to like a new clientele and very much needing to be in the forefront, being like, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what it's like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing that now.
Yeah.
And it means, I'm up until 2 in the morning and then go to sleep for a few hours and I'm at the shop at 6 and I'm running here, there, and everywhere trying to sort things out. So balance is tough. My partner is incredibly understanding, but
Hmm.
the hope and the goal is that like after this period, we get to the point where like I'm home for dinner every night.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
answer emails after he goes to bed, whatever. I don't
Right.
know.
Right. The fact that your partner is like, yeah, let's go ahead and still get married tells me that you found some success in that balance. Another question for you.
Yeah.
So what's that one thing that people don't know about you that you wish they did?
That I'm an introvert. I don't want to talk to you. I will, but I don't want to.
Oh.
And it's not that like it's not that I don't love people and I don't enjoy having conversations with them, and like I love hearing about your life and whatnot, but like if I'm not careful, the time will run away, and every moment that I spend with you is a moment that I'm taking from myself or from somewhere else or from a task that needs to be done. And if I spend 3 hours talking, that means, at 3 in the morning, you'll drive by the shop and my car will be there and the lights will be on because I should have been talking to you. And it's at the point where like, an introvert, the thing is that you don't get your energy from talking to people.
That's
It
right.
actually exhausts you.
That's
So
right.
then when I leave, I'm just like, I enjoy the interaction and I love getting to know my customers. I love spending time with you. But then
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to like sit down and like just be
Yeah.
alone for a minute
Right.
and try to rejuvenate myself so I can continue
Yeah.
on my day. So I think that's
Yeah.
that's one thing that people would be like, but you talk a lot. I'm like, yeah, I
I
know, it's weird. I don't know. I have a lot of words, but I only really want to use them when I want to use them, and then other
That's
times I don't want to use them.
yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Real quick, Smiley, before you start the final four. I was telling my son the
Yeah,
exact same thing recently. Is that I enjoy connecting with people. But I recharge when I'm have my me time. And I was
yeah,
telling my son that recently someone wanted to go to lunch, and I'm just like, ugh. Like, I have to have a conversation with myself to get myself to
yeah,
want to be able to do this, because it's not exciting. It's not like, so
yeah,
I can relate with that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's tough.
This has been amazing, but let's assume you're going to have dinner. This is a table of four, you're
Yeah,
in one chair. Who would the other three
yeah.
representatives be at the dinner table and why? Alive or dead?
Ooh,
Alive or dead? Other
yeah.
three.
I think this might go back to what I just said. I'd be really happy to eat alone.
That's an acceptable answer. That's acceptable.
Because in my mind, I'm like, who is it that I wouldn't have to like entertain, or I wouldn't have to
Yeah.
like, you know what? It would be my best friends, like the people that I know that we can sit there in silence, and
Yeah.
they're just happy to be around. Like Jen from Australia and Kenzie from here in Canada, and like probably Megan, but then like we pull up an extra chair for Stephanie as well. Like it would. There's not really anyone that I'd want to have that one-to-one. I'm happy to read your biography, and I feel like it was interesting, but it's on my time. I don't want to. 2 hours
Love to
over a
talk to you
meal is a
about
I
commitment.
love it. I
Yeah.
love it, Dre. All right.
it. Okay, we'll go with
That-
that. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
What's been your greatest success?
I don't know. Lots of other people probably have answers for me. Like I saw friends today, and they're like, "Yeah, congratulations on the shed opening," and I'm like, "Oh, thanks. I guess." Like it doesn't. I don't know. I don't know if I feel a great sense of success. And that's probably because I've just been looking forward. I've not taken time to look back to see where we've come from. Um, but if there's one thing that I'm really, really, really proud of, it is the culture that I've created at my business in which my employees work. Drama free, without just being like, oh, we're drama free. Actually, drama free. Like everyone is kind to each other, and like, I mean, it doesn't mean we're nice, right? We make fun of people all the time, but we're kind to each other. And it's a place where people enjoy coming to work. And that's not something that I've always had, but it's always been something that I wanted to create. And I think that we have successfully done that. When someone walks in and they're a part of the team, they're a part of the team. We're not family. We're not going to manipulate you. We're not like, oh my gosh, we do this because we're family. No, we're a team. When you slack, I'll come and I'll pick up the slack, but I will talk to you about it the entire time I'm doing it. Like, this is your job, and I'm doing it only because if you look bad, we all look bad, and I'm not going to look bad today. But like next time, let it not happen. And if you need help, you ask me before you get to this point, and we can have those conversations. And at the end of the day, be like, okay, see you tomorrow, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
and it's fine, And that's the culture that I've been able to create. But they're the ones that are carrying it forward, and I am grateful for it. I'm so 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 grateful for it. That's probably the only thing that I would say I'm successful at. Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. And here's one. What's your superpower? Something that's uniquely Lenore. That's your superpower
Um,
that no one else possesses.
I think it's the ability to work the hours that I do and sustain it without any sort of caffeine in my body. Just sheer power of will.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Um,
probably that.
okay. And before I ask the last final four question, just out of curiosity, what's the next chapter look like? What is the next chapter for you? Because you can't do this
Yes.
forever.
No.
Newsflash, you cannot burn the
Yeah.
candle from both ends into your 70s or 80s.
Sir, I know. I know. I keep telling everyone I'm going to retire when I'm 40, and that's in 8 years. So I'll maintain this level of shenanigans probably for the next 4 or 5 years,
Okay.
and then really start to work on building out a succession and finding people who are going to be in these positions long term, and how to get the business to function on its own long term,
Okay.
so that I can focus on like myself and my family. But yeah, like the next for me, I mean, now and in the future, Smiley mentioned it in my bio, currently working with Liftoff, which is an accelerator for Black entrepreneurs, helping them de-risk their business. Because it's
Mm.
tough out here for entrepreneurs, and it's even tougher for Black entrepreneurs. A fear of credit, because we've seen how it's destroyed our families, our parents, our
Hmm.
grandparents,
Hmm.
the inability to get credit just because we came out the womb looking like us.
Hmm.
Everything like this, where you're like, you walk into a room and nobody looks like you. How do you navigate these? Um, how do you navigate these areas to ensure that your business is successful, that you're not compromising, you don't feel like you're bending to the will of someone who doesn't look like you, who holds all the power just because they're in the majority and you might be in the minority.
Mm.
And that for me has been an incredibly empowering position to be in, and something that I definitely want to lean into more going forward. Not because, I've made it and pat myself on the back. No, because I'm in these trenches with you, but I'm just a little further ahead. So if I can help you in any way, maybe miss the mistakes that I made, or just be better set for success, then I want to do that, because that's the kind of longevity that we need. And we don't have people that are necessarily putting in those resources and effort and time into making sure that the generations that are coming behind us, it's like, you don't have to go through the exact same pitfalls I went through. I'm going to build a little board. I'm going to put it over the hole. I'm going to teach you how to get over it. And so you can keep going and, catch up to me and surpass me. Like that would truly, I think, be the definition of success. To walk into a room and no longer be the only one who looks like me. When there are like 6, 7, 8 other ones of us, and we're just like, yeah, we see you. We know there are 40 million coming behind us. Like that for me would be incredible.
Great. And the reason I mentioned the next chapter is because there's clearly, hopefully, a book inside of you. If you were to write an autobiography, what would the title be?
Oh, I love this for you. Probably.
I love this for you.
Yeah, I love this for you. Or I hate that for me. Either one. Either I love this for you or I hate that for me. They're that, and I hate it here. These are all things that I say on a regular and consistent basis in my daily life. Yeah, either I hate it here, or I love this for you, or I hate that for me. Either one of those.
Well, I see 3 books. That's what I got from that. I see 3 books.
I did too. I heard 3 titles, 3 amazing titles.
Is that what you heard, Smiley?
or even those are 3 podcast titles. Those are podcast themes. I like that.
There you go. You got options.
Well, Lenore, this has been most incredible, and we really appreciate you taking time to speak with us. I want to first tell you the words I didn't hear is I'm special, but I'm so glad you responded to my Instagram, because it made me feel special, even though it wasn't expressed. And I thank you for that special feeling, and thank you for responding and being here, sharing your life and your amazing journey. I mean, from London to Canada to New Zealand, to an island in New Zealand that I've never heard of, that I'm going to Google this afternoon. So thank you for sharing your life with us.
And just to add to that, Lenore, you mentioned earlier a moment ago that you have a lot of words. What I appreciate is how well you use them to illustrate your journey to this point. I don't know how I'm going to get to your shop, but clearly I need to be there, because me and Smiley are going to have to make a road trip or something.
Road trip.
Because these little cakes and pies and whatnot, Smiley, we got to make it happen. Lenore, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I've really appreciated it.